I'm Lisa Byrne.
And I'm Lori Gambacorta with E.P.I.C, Empowering People, Inspiring Community. And on today's segment of E.P.I.C Experts Interviews, we are excited to have with us Holly Duckworth of Aware Care Durango. Welcome, Holly.
Hi, guys. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's an interesting time that we're living in, and we want to learn all about what you do and how that came about. So why don't you give us a little description of what your business is like?
Sure. Yeah. So I am what's called a quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. So QHHT for short. That still isn't any easier to pronounce, QHHT. And I'm called a level 3 practitioner, which is the top level of practitioners. And there's about 15 or 16 of us in the world that do this at that level. And I practice under the business heading of Aware Care Durango. And so I do that, the QHHT, the hypnosis, and then I do some other holistic mental health services, psychotherapeutic type of services as well, but primarily focus on the hypnosis. And QHHT is a very, very unusual form of hypnosis. It was created by Dolores Cannon. And Dolores Cannon is, I guess, pretty famous. I think she's kind of up there with like Edgar Cayce and people like that. But she wrote 19 books that were associated with her hypnosis sessions. And then in the last 10 or 15 years of her life, she started teaching other people how to do what she was doing. And I was lucky enough to find her process, meet her, and learn from her before she passed. And so a QHHT session, you only ever have one session, but that one session is 5 to 7 hours. So it's very unusual, not even remotely associated with clinical hypnosis, nothing like that. Because we work with one client at a time, very intensely, very deeply in that one session. So I've been practicing that for, well, in February, it'll be 10 years. Yeah, so quite a while, and love it.
Well, you must have some great stories practicing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how did you stumble onto the QHHT?
Yeah, it's a fascinating, accidentally. Right. So my son, who's 29 now and a graduate of Fort Lewis, but 10 years ago, he was a struggling 19-year-old, and he was incarcerated for DUI. And of course, as a mom, he's my oldest, and as a mom, I was like really distraught, pulling my hair out, this is not a good situation. And he was incarcerated in a situation where I couldn't even visit him. I could either have phone calls or video calls, but not any actual face-to-face contact, which made it even worse. And he was incarcerated for 21 days. And so in one of these phone calls, rare phone calls, he's like, "Hey, Mom, I found this book in jail. You've got to read it. It's awesome." And it was one of Dolores Cannon's books. I had never heard of her before. I had never read one of her books. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So just to be able to connect with my son and have the next conversation, I'm like, Amazon, click, order this Dolores Cannon book. No idea what it was, no idea what it was about. And I get this book, and it was her Convoluted Universe series, and it was book number 4. And I start reading this book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everything I've ever believed in my entire life is in this book, and I've never seen it in print before. All of these metaphysical concepts and stuff that I knew, but in the corporate buttoned up, mainstream world that I was operating in at the time, nobody else was talking about this kind of stuff. So I read Convoluted book 4, and I'm just like over the moon. I start devouring books. By the time he got out of jail, I had read 5 of her books. And then that was in December, and 10 years ago. And she was going to have a weekend seminar in Sacramento, like in January. And so just to kind of, healing process with my son, let's get away, let's go see her, go be in the room with her, let's go to this seminar. So he and I took off for Sacramento and did the 3-day seminar. Well, a little background. Okay, so my bachelor's degree is in mechanical engineering. I have a master's degree in management and a PhD in psychology. And so I consider myself like very left brain, very analytical, and at the time, like corporate, buttoned up, navy blue suit kind of day-to-day life. And I think at the time, I'm like, I love Dolores. I had so much respect for her research. I was so into what she was writing. But that hypnosis stuff, yeah, that works on those people, not me. Right? But I'm going to go to this seminar and like just to be in the room and pay their respects, and maybe had a few questions for her. But I didn't have any expectations for the hypnosis actually like doing anything for me.
That woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good for those people. That doesn't work on me. And so we go in, and so the 3 days, she would take a ballroom full of like 250 people into hypnosis simultaneously. Okay. And then each day was like different experiences. Like one day would be meet your spirit guides, another day would be like past life, another day would be like future life. And so each day we're doing different things. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to, I'll play along, I'll sit there, but it's not going to work on me. I'm an engineer, it's not going to work on me. And so, of course, the first hypnosis is like just profound experiences. I was in like immediately. We come out of the first hypnosis and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run up to the stage and tell her that this actually works, because she's only been doing it for 40 years. I'm sure she doesn't know that, right? Yes, right? Well, that was so, and then, the weekend just continued to be like over the top profound. And that was in January. In February, I was in training. And I'm like, this is it. I'm done. This is my life. I know exactly what I'm doing, and never looked back.
Great. I love the whole, neophyte excitement, right? It's like when we have one of those first spiritual experiences, it's just like,
Yeah.
what just happened? My entire beingness came to the forefront, and I haven't experienced it. I've known it's there, or I haven't known it's there. So that's incredible. And from that, like, how long is the training program, and is there, different programs that you continue to take, or?
Yeah, so it's a level 1, level 2, level 3 kind of thing. And back then, none of it was online. Now all of it's online. But I was lucky enough to have my level 1 and level 2 training while Dolores was still alive. So that was like ridiculous. Now looking back, is like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to have had that. So I think it was like a couple of years for level 1 and 2, and then level 3 is kind of a big deal. It's a big jump up between level 1 or level 2 and level 3. And so by then she had passed, but her daughter Julia Cannon is still completely functioning and operating, carrying on her mother's publishing company, all of the QHHT Academy, all of that. She's still carrying on. And so I had my level 3 with Julia, and the whole process was about 5 years, and well, 4 years, about 4 years. So I tell people that, I now as a level 3, we teach as a part of our certification process. So I tell new students, I'm like, think about this as like a college degree. It's gonna take 4 years for you to get to where you need to be. And then the level 3 certification, what that means, and there's all kinds of things you have to do in terms of participating in the community, teaching, all those kinds of things, in addition to the practice. But what that means is that you are certified to be practicing exactly as Dolores Cannon did. So when you have a QHHT session from a level 3 practitioner, it is as if you're in the room with Dolores. That's the point of the level 3. And so that's now it's been almost 4 years since I've been, no, a little over 4 years, 4.5 years since I've been certified level 3.
So for the folks watching and listening, if they're familiar with hypnosis at all, they're probably more familiar with clinical hypnosis. So can you give a little bit more detail about how the QHHT is different from clinical, and if somebody came to you, what they might expect, or why they would come to you in the first place even?
Absolutely. So because it's metaphysical, we can really go anywhere and do anything. And most clients come to QHHT for physical healing. Cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, any kind of autoimmune disease. I've seen QHHT regrow teeth, regrow bone, dissolve tumors instantaneously. And so it really is primarily metaphysical, physical healing is what a lot of people come to sessions for. But we also, of course, work on emotional healing, mental health. I have people that want to come in and ask questions about life decisions, relationships, past, present, future, any of those kinds of things. And so what the client does is they come into the session with all of the questions that they ever wanted to ask their higher self, because that's who we're going to have on the hook, okay? Any question about anything, future, past, people in your life, karmic contracts, and then of course anything associated with the physical healing. And then when they come into the session, we're going to spend a couple of hours talking about those questions to make sure that I understand the context around the questions. Because when we get into the hypnosis, I'm having a conversation with the higher self. Okay, so the person, the conscious mind is going into hypnosis, is disappearing or becoming an observer to the process. And then I go into direct conversation with the higher self, asking the questions, getting answers, exploring all of the topics that the client came in with in conversation. And all of that's recorded. And usually the hypnosis alone is 2 to 2.5 hours. Okay, so you think about a clinical hypnosis session, maybe you're in hypnosis for 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. This is 2.5 hours in hypnosis. Okay, getting the answers to all of those questions. Then I'll debrief a little bit. I will put on my psychology hat and maybe offer some observations and some ideas and put some puzzle pieces together from the answers that we got. And then the client leaves the session with that recording. And what's super, super, super important, the real healing, the real move forward comes from that person listening to that recording over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, okay? And that's why they never need another session. All their answers are there on that recording. And so they go back to that recording for literally years to come. I have a recording of myself in hypnosis from almost 10 years ago, and I still listen to it and I still get valuable information out of it because the higher self has programmed that recording with information that they know what that person's going to need 10 years from now. It's in there. And so they go back and listen to it, and maybe circumstances change and things have a whole new meaning. Maybe the person grows and things have a deeper meaning, but they're working with that recording and reconnecting with their higher self through that recording for years to come after the session. So that's kind of why people come and how the whole thing works.
Yeah. It's so different than other modalities because you're used to, figuring out how frequently you need to go or, what that looks like. So I don't know a lot about how she developed this, but can you give us a little bit more background then? Like, how did you realize that, in one session, we could get to that place? And how would people know then when it's the right time, right? Because you said you've had one from 10 years ago. And I'm assuming that, they never need another one, but people can come for more than one if they want, correct?
I have probably facilitated over 900 sessions. I've only ever had someone come back for a second session twice.
Okay, cool.
Over 900 sessions. Okay. You really don't. I have clients all the time that will be like, they'll email me, hey, Holly, this came back, this situation came back or whatever, this, physical ailment or whatever. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you listened to your recording? Oh, it's been a while. Well, go listen to your recording and then let me know. They don't need another session. It's all right there. Yeah. Yeah. But those two people that did come back for a second session came back to me and went, Holly, I'm living in a different universe. I have all new questions. I'm like, okay, come on back then. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not forbidden to have a second session. You just don't need it. Yeah. Most of the time. Yeah. So Dolores started, fascinating story. I mean, I encourage everybody, go look her up on YouTube. There's tons of YouTube videos of her. She's this chubby little blue-haired bouffant grandma lady in all of her YouTube videos. Arkansas housewife, not who you expect to be delivering this profound, knowledge. And so back in the 60s, her husband, he was in the Navy and he got out of the Navy and he's kind of like, well, what am I going to do? And back then it was hypnosis for lose weight and stop smoking. And it was kind of a big deal. And so he got into that. And of course they had 4 or 5 kids, I think. So she was a mom and she was allowed to hold the microphone in his hypnosis sessions. That was it. Okay. And then later on, they stumbled onto this past life stuff. And he wasn't particularly interested in it. I mean, he was and he wasn't, but he was the provider of the family. He's trying to do the stop smoking, lose weight stuff, right? She was fascinated by the past life stuff, but it kind of wasn't really material. Well, he ends up getting into this horrible car wreck. He's disabled. So then she's taking care of him. Of course, his life is cut short because of all of that. And so here she is in her 50s, in the early 1970s. Kids are grown and kind of like, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I don't know. Her husband's passed. And she's like, you know what? I want to go back to that past life stuff, right? And so she started exploring. She's just insatiably curious is really, her claim to fame. So all of her early books were written about past lives. And she wrote a couple of books on Jesus. She found this client that regressed as the rabbi that gave Jesus and John their bar mitzvah. She had clients that had lived through Hiroshima. And so like a lot of her early books were about she connected with the secretary of Nostradamus through past lives and wrote 3 books on Nostradamus. So her early work was like really focused on the past life stuff, which frankly, we're like, whatever, we're kind of over that now, but that was important to her early work. Then E.T. started coming out. She started meeting all of these other planet people and through the hypnosis work. So then she wrote a bunch of books on the whole E.T. experience and alien experience. And so there's the custodians and keepers of the garden and all kinds of books around the E.T. experience. And then only after all of that, then she starts finding about the waves of volunteers and the new earth and the ascension that the earth herself is going through. And then all the convoluted universe stuff, which is about things like energy beings and time portals and lost knowledge and all of this other stuff kept coming out. And so she started this work in the 70s. It wasn't until the late 1990s that she connected with the higher self for physical healing. And then all of this miraculous physical healing started coming out. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is it. It isn't about past lives. It isn't about aliens. It isn't about lost knowledge. oh my gosh, we can cure anything. We can cure any possible physical ailment in a single session, through hypnosis. And that's when it was like cherry on top, culmination of her entire career. And that's when she developed quantum healing hypnosis technique, and then started teaching other people about it. And it was so much more profound than the curiosities around past lives and, and aliens and whatnot. And so then she started teaching other people, and really, I mean, it wasn't frankly until the last minute, her last 10 years, that she started formulating what she was doing in a way that was replicatable, that she could teach other people to do exactly what she was doing and get the same results of what she was doing. And the healing works because what we do is we ask the higher self, why? Why is this person experiencing cancer? What's the point? What's the purpose to this? And most of the time, what we find out from the higher self is that the physical situation, we don't even call it a disease, it's just a situation, that situation has occurred because the higher self was trying to point the person in another direction. It was a cautionary tale, if you will. It was a message from the higher self to go, you need to pay attention to this thing over here, and you're not. And so we're going to give you this physical situation to try to turn your attention into this other direction. And once we can unravel why the situation is manifest, done, message received, move forward in that direction now. And so all of that mystery of why the circumstance has arisen is completely unraveled in a session, and then the person can move forward in the other direction.
They're shifting their vibration away from what was the missing element to where they need to be, and then the physical body can realign itself.
And through their free will, they can choose not to, and the cancer will continue, and they'll get to exit this life and then review that, and then have another opportunity in a different incarnation to learn that lesson. So, yeah.
Well, what you do is pretty unique. So what are some of the ways that you connect with potential clients? Like, how do you kind of get the word out and kind of explain, the magnificent healing power of the QHHT?
That's a really cool part for me. What do I do? Nothing. Most of my clients aren't in Durango. They fly in for their session. Like I said, there's so few level 3s across the world. People are usually looking for a level 3 practitioner. They want that, the certificate of, I want the session just like Dolores did it. And people find me through Dolores Cannon. There's over 100,000, no, there's almost 200,000 subscribers on the Dolores Cannon YouTube channel, 200,000 subscribers to her YouTube channel. Again, the 19 books, people usually pick up, they find a Dolores Cannon book, they read it, they see what's going on, most resonate with it at a profound level. And then they go looking for practitioners, and there's so few level 3 practitioners that I have people flying in from Maine, from Miami, from California. I have droves of people driving in from the Front Range. I'm usually booked 4 to 6 months in advance. Right now, I have a few days left in March and April. But they've all found me through Dolores Cannon.
You had talked, and that's phenomenal that happens that way, and you don't have to really put it out there that much. You've talked about when you first went, you and your son, to see her, that she would hold the space and create this opportunity for 200 or 250 people. So as a level 3 practitioner, do you have the ability to do group sessions?
Yeah, I have before. I have done group regressions at the Whole Expo I'm usually invited to do that there, and it's usually standing room only. But honestly, I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time to do things other than QHHT because, I mean, people like, I'll get an email. I got an email yesterday, someone newly diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I'm not going to tell that person, oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing this group regression thing for people to get introduced to it instead of working with you to help you live.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's hard. It's hard for me to be able to apply my attention to other things in other ways. So
It sounds like things can't be done via Zoom. We talked about that a little bit before, but just so everyone knows, because now with what's happening with the pandemic, a lot of people may be like, can I just get a Zoom call? Can I, how can that happen? So,
and I've been practicing all along. I mean, with precautions, we're 6 foot distanced. We can be distanced in the whole thing. My office is sanitized every morning. There's no touching. We're not in contact in any way, shape, or form. And so with the appropriate precautions, even the in-person sessions have continued through the Zoom. It's only me and you in the office. And so you're not in contact with anyone else. And we're appropriately distanced and sanitized.
So what is it that you love the most about what you do?
Well, so I have I have a front seat to like crazy universal knowledge. I mean, like every day for me is like, oh, just the information that's coming through for the client, but for me, it's fascinating too. And so one of the things that I've started doing a lot lately with my clients' permission, I'll work with them to share this knowledge. And so I've kind of built up my YouTube channel with session segments that I've been able to share. And so what I'll do is as I'm, in this front row seat, getting this profound knowledge, if it's of universal interest, I'll ask for my clients' permission, and I'll do some, editing and offer my perspectives and kind of work it up into like a little lesson opportunity, life lesson opportunity, and then share that. I'll send it to the client and I'll say, well, here's what I made. Are you okay with me sharing this with the world? And invariably they say yes. And so I've got to really share some crazy, profound knowledge through YouTube with everybody. Of the kind of like just ridiculous wisdom that I get. So, for example, I just pushed a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago. Well, I just pushed one just Monday on enlightenment. The higher self went into this 30-minute lecture on what enlightenment is, what prevents us from achieving enlightenment, what to focus on to be enlightened. And so I, with my client's permission, was able to share that with everyone. And then like a month or so ago, the higher self came through with this lecture on gut health and how that's required for ascension. And what that meant, I mean, like really specific stuff, like drink water and immerse yourself in water and do this and do that for gut health. And that gut health is a requirement for ascension. It's like, well, I didn't know that. Who knew that? I don't really pay attention to my gut health, but okay, now I will. So just this, having the front row seat to profound knowledge and then being able to share that with the world. That's like way cool.
have you had any on, what 2020 has been about, or the pandemic? Or
Absolutely. So of late, there's 2 other QHHT practitioners in Durango. They're new level 2s.
Oh no! Oh, okay. I thought
They're new level 2s, and I help mentor them and coach them and whatnot. We're really close. It's Rachel Bennett and Debbie Sykes, and they're fantastic, and they'll be level 3 someday for sure. But we've been doing this thing called the SC Summit. SC was Dolores's term for the higher self, the super consciousness. And so we have this thing called the SC Summit, where the 3 of us get together in my office And we've rotated around of who goes under and who's the facilitator and who's the recorder. And so we have these roles, and we've done 5 of these summits so far. And we take the public's questions. So we just gather up questions from the public, and then whoever's in hypnosis. So we get the higher self on, through hypnosis, and then one of us is asking the public's questions. And of course, the public's been asking all kinds of questions about 2020 and 2021, and just all kinds of the vaccine, the virus, all kinds of questions. And so those are all out there. Those are all published out there. There's 5 of those, and each of them are at least an hour long. And we've gotten, for each one, 50 or 60 questions from the public. And then what I do is I tabulate the question, and the timestamp, so people can fast forward to their question and the answer to their question. So we've been able to channel all of these answers about what's going on. So go to YouTube, look up the SC Summits, and there's at least 5 hours of questions and answers about what the heck's going on with elections and politics and health and around the world kind of stuff that the public has asked their questions. And we're going to continue that. We'll continue to be taking questions. So I will tell people, go to my website and make sure that you're on my newsletter. Make sure that you subscribe to my newsletter, because then I send out a blast email that says, hey, we're doing an SC Summit, give me your questions and we'll ask your questions. And so then that's how you get your question asked.
So tell everybody right now how they can connect with you, what the YouTube is, the website, the email, all of that information too, so that they can be jotting that. They have questions to get on the news.
So the website is awarecaredurango.com. That's all one word, awarecaredurango.com. That's my website. That's where you can sign up for the newsletter and make sure that you're participating in these SC Summits. My YouTube channel, if you just Google Holly Duckworth PhD, you'll find that's my YouTube channel. You'll find me there, and there's playlists on Dolores, there's playlists on session segments, there's playlists on spiritual awakening, there's playlists on hacking the psyche, all kinds of different playlists, all kinds of videos out there that are oriented for different interests. And then I do a lot of outreach on Instagram. So I like to have a lot of inspirational material on Instagram. So if you do @AwareCareDurango, then you'll find me on Instagram there too. And my email is just Holly, HOLLY, @AwareCareDurango.com.
Great. So if you could go back in time, I mean, this is an interesting question. We ask this, to pretty much everybody that we interview. So the answer will be interesting given the whole SC higher self. But if you could go back in time, is there any advice that you would give your younger self?
Well, yeah, I think I did it accidentally, but now I would go back and do it more purposefully. But that is go with the flow. I got my PhD in psychology before I even found Dolores. And I didn't know why. I was doing this PhD in psychology. I was drawn to it. I knew I had to do it, and I did it. But I had no freaking clue of what I was going to do with it. I just trusted that something would show up. I didn't know. And then, of course, when I found Dolores and found QHHT, I'm like, oh, well, that's why I've been working on my PhD for the last 6 years. But I just went with it. I went with my gut, and I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I just knew it was the right thing to do. And so I think that just go with the flow, follow your intuition. You don't have to know where this is going to end up. You don't have to have the outcome all worked out. Follow the path wherever the path is, and just flow. Yeah.
And now let's go the other direction. So if you could fast forward 10 or 15 years, what do you want to be your legacy or your contribution to the world or the community?
Yeah. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I know that this form of hypnosis is the future of healthcare. You don't need drugs. I mean, we need some acute care if you break a leg or whatever, but in terms of like chronic disease, this is the future of healthcare. So I tell people, I'm like, okay, so just count up all the doctors and nurses that are in the world. That's how many QHHT practitioners we need. Because it's what I can only serve one person a day. So do you know how many practitioners we need? I mean, there's like, I think 5,000 or 6,000 in the world right now. We need like 500 or 600,000 in the world. And so I encourage people to think about this as a career, think about this as their path. I love working with Rachel and Debbie and helping them along. And it's just, I get wound up because I'm like, I can only work with one person a day. There's so many more people that need help out there. How do we accelerate this? How do we expand this? And so the more I can pay it forward in terms of expanding the number of practitioners in the world, then the better. And so someday in my future self, just in little old Durango, there's probably 100 QHHT practitioners, and that would be like my pie in the sky.
I can't wait until the day is, when somebody's like, oh, what kind of healthcare do you have? Or blah, blah, blah. And somebody else is like, well, have you had your aware care session yet? It's like, and then it's like, well, if you haven't, I mean, it's going to change your life. Just do it and we'll all be good. So yeah.
One.
Just one.
You don't need an annual checkup. Go back and listen to your recording annually. That's all you need.
That's a cool word. And is that just the word that you came up with, or is that something that she uses? Because it's like, it is, right? It's like aware care. If you were aware, you could.
No, that's me. That's what they gave me. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're caring by opening up awareness, and awareness that you are so much bigger than this meat puppet that's hanging out here right now. Yeah, tap into that, and anything is possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really been a pleasure learning about the QHHT and chatting with you. And, can you give people your website one more time?
Yeah, it's all one word, awarecaredurango.com, AwareCareDurango.com.
Thank you for joining us, Holly. We'll look forward to checking out those summits and getting more information. And if anyone wants information on EPIC, you can visit us at epicmag.org. Namaste.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.